ashes melted back to life. Done my time and served my sentence. Dress me up and watch me die. If it feels good, tastes good, it must be mine. Dynasty decapitated, you just might see a ghost tonight. And if you don't know now, you know. I'm taking back the crown. I'm all dressed up and naked. I see what's mine and take it.
All right, that music can mean only one thing. You just summon the demon or pirate or deer or what. You summon something. We're here. We're going to have a blast with this tonight. It is the Halloween special. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, and we're going to have some fun with this one. Let us know if you can see and hear us in the comments. Make sure we get this out there. We are on YouTube and Twitter only because the Book of Face does not play very nice. So we're not playing very nice with them. It's kind of, you don't get to look at my lunchbox. I don't get to look at yours, that kind of thing. Yeah, we're going to be that way. So, and here we go with the paranormal stuff in the other room already. We call them cats. Y'all call them ghosts. It's the same thing. But we're going to get started here very shortly. Just going to go ahead and make sure everything is set up over here. And then we're going to go ahead and bring out our guest because, pretty, no. Pretty, yes, not so pretty here. So we need more pretty out here. So we're going to go ahead and start bringing out some guests out here. We have got, let's go ahead and bring out Christy Faught is here. Let's go ahead and bring her out. Christy, what's going on?
Hey, not much. What's going on, guys?
Doing great.
Doing good.
Happy Halloween.
Doing good.
Happy
Doing
Halloween.
great. Happy Halloween to you guys too.
Hey, excellent. We've been having a great time getting ready for this, been excited about this, and we've got a couple other people to join us up here as well, so I'm going to bring them up now. We've got Jade Louder. We'll bring him up on here. Jade, what's going on?
Hello. So awesome to be here in the virtual studio.
Exactly. I mean, we spare no expense. I mean, there's M&Ms virtually somewhere around you, not literally, but virtually.
I'm looking for them.
I know, and if you have trouble with that, we have a virtual person that you contact to go ahead and let you know that customer service type thing. But it's virtual, same thing. And speaking of virtual and somebody enjoying the environment and everything, and waiting for the M&Ms as well, we got Tom from Big Dog Inc. here.
I'm always in the environment. This is my environment. I live in this environment all the time.
That is the absolute truth. Now, before we get started with everything, I want to go ahead and bring up, because tonight is kind of special because, and we're only going to do this once because I don't want him to come over here and start haunting us because we're going to start, resonating on the subject scenario. He'll start with Christy, but trust me, he'll get around. I want to go ahead and say that this show is in memory of one of our own that had fallen, David Faught, and that's one of his prettier pictures there. That absolutely. Whenever Christy sent that to me, I was like, "That is David right there." David Boobs Faught, and if you don't know that middle name, you would have to have known him to know that was an official. I'm sure he had that added to birth certificate somewhere. But he was a good guy, and this was his favorite time of the year. So whenever I reached out to Christy and said, "Hey, what about we go ahead and make this just a night to remember about all things horror, spooky, scary, all that kind of stuff," because David would love that, and Christy was all for it. And Christy and David, brother and sister, they were inseparable. And so we're going to go ahead and move on from now, because if any tears are shed, lights will start flickering and stuff will start getting thrown across the room, and we don't want that from David. So
exactly.
Thank you everyone for being here. Christy, thank you for being here and sharing with us all of this as well.
No problem, thanks.
And we're going to get started into this. The main thing that we're doing tonight is this is all about horror and scary and anything along those lines. We're going to be talking movies, TV shows. We might even bring up some comics, since there's some people who have some kind of knowledge about that in here. Different things of that nature, but also, personally, some things that might scare you or whatever. Don't even say it. Don't do it. She's biting her tongue already. Like you're in the headlights. We're going to have fun. So the first thing that I want to go ahead and do is we're going to go round robin on the room real quick. We're going to go ahead and start out with Christy. Go ahead and tell us who you are and what it is that you're doing, what you're working on.
Well, I'm David's sister, Christy. Basically right now, I'm trying to keep his artwork to going. I do have some stuff that's coming out. I'm getting ready to do a con next month. But other than that, I'm just trying to keep his artwork to going. In training right now with work, and kind of doing trying to get back and doing a little bit of writing on the side myself.
Nice, very nice. And Jade, what about you?
Yeah, Jade Louder. I'm a comic book artist. I'm also an art professor. I teach art at a college, and so that's where I'm at right now. I teach kind of the night classes, and so I'm in my office, which is so interesting. It doesn't look much like an art school from here, but yeah, I make horror comics and yeah, and so I'm stoked to be here to talk about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Now, I want to know how you missed the opportunity that you got a chalkboard right behind you and you couldn't write Mr. Louder up there, you know, for all of us to go ahead and back to you.
I wish it was as cool as a chalkboard. It's just a gray painted wall. it's yeah.
I mean, we can always use Sharpie. Who's going to get in trouble? Not us.
That's the art school that Taco Bell got their inspiration from for all their new stores.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's kind of the joke of like all art schools, that most art schools are like the most boring, drab building on campus every time. They don't look like art buildings.
Well, Tom, go ahead and tell us who you are and what you're working on, because it sounded like beforehand that you were a little bored, you know, coming up into next year and everything. So I just want to make sure you have a little bit.
I have nothing to do, so anyone can hire me to write their comics or whatever. I'm available to direct films. I'm available to script your movie. I'm available to do anything, but only after 2025, because until then I'm booked. So I'm Tom. This is all you need right here. It's always here. Just look it up. I've been doing comics now for 12 years, going on 13 for next year. Working on Princesses versus Zombies to launch next Friday. And then we'll be doing Ursa Minor in January. We'll be bringing Penny for Your Soul back next year. We'll be doing an anthology book with some other writers next year to celebrate our 13-year anniversary. So yeah, just when I'm out, they pull me back in again.
Sounds about right. And I'm going to turn the floor over to my dear fiance here. See the play on words there. Go ahead and let them know what we've been working on and kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, we've been we've got a new show out we call Positive Influence. So we've been booking that. That one focuses more on advertising your Kickstarters. Helluva show. We've had some people in our market research who basically say that some of you like the Kickstarter focused interviews to where it's all about the project. Others prefer a more creator oriented interview where it's all about the creator. So we kind of split it. Positive Influence is going to be more about the projects, and Helluva show more about the creators themselves. We have launched, we revamped Unscripted. Unscripted now is called Unscripted After Dark, and it is everything that cannot be shown at work. So
We're talking about, yes.
Yeah, we're talked about. And then we are also working on bringing some wrestling promoters. I think we've got them what day scheduled?
I don't remember, but they're coming up.
Yeah, very shortly. I believe,
like 2 weeks.
Yeah, I believe it's like a week or two. We've got 2 wrestling promoters and an actual wrestler coming on for the show, for Helluva show.
Nice.
And then I've reached out to some other wrestlers, so just waiting to hear back on them. So we're planning on coming up with a actual wrestling show that will air on Saturdays once we get that all set up. So we've been working on that.
What's on your watch list? We've been working on that one, having a lot of fun with that, with some of the shows that are on there, and doing weekly spoiler shows to kind of go over the reviews on there. But the one that I've had the most fun with, which is sadly ending as of today, 31 days of Halloween ranked countdown. I had a blast with this thing. What I want to go ahead and kind of discuss with this one is I've seen a lot of people who will, do a post, or they'll just simply say, day this is my pick. And that's great and everything. Me, always got to kind of do something outside of the box a little bit. So I went ahead and did a short video. It's usually 10 minutes or less, depending upon what movie it is that I choose for the day. And not only do I talk about the general synopsis of what it's about, I go ahead and explain why it's on my list and why it's in the number that it's in there to kind of promote, why I choose these things. And then on top of that, we go find the actual movie trailer and we post that side by side with it. So you can go back and watch that trailer, because some of us are incredibly old and have been here for a while. And some people that are a little bit younger may look at these things going, that was actually a movie I heard that they were doing a remake in like 10 years, but didn't know it was an actual movie. Yeah, a bunch of whippersnappers. We know the original stuff. But
they're all puppies.
Exactly.
Your reviews have like a boob counter, like this movie has this many boobs.
I thought about doing that. I'm gonna have to save that for next year and do like for the sequel to that thing. But next year, Lady Trish is actually going to be handling the horror movies there, because this year we're doing where, since I got to pick the Halloween movies, she's going to pick the Christmas movies.
That's because Christmas is my favorite time of year.
Yes, and that brings me right into. I was waiting for you to say it. I was. Because even though Christmas is your your favorite time of the year, whenever you start talking about Christmas and it ain't even October yet, this is what I see here. Going to the store and you see, Halloween stuff is being clearanced 2 weeks before it's even Halloween, so that they can get all the Christmas stuff down the aisle. No, there's two holidays, not just one, two.
Now, see, how did this odd pairing ever come about? Because he is David's kindred spirit when it comes to his love of Halloween. I'm that annoying person that's blasting Christmas music in the middle of June and July.
Yeah. So, just wanted to go ahead and bring up the fact that for those of us diehard fans that are out there, and I know that in the Faught resonance, that Halloween is always put on a pedestal and it's not, downgraded by other holidays out there. I want to thank you for doing that and make sure that, the rest of us can go ahead and live that way. And maybe some others can possibly learn from your example on there to know that their holiday comes before the red and green.
Hey, Freddie wears red and green.
Exactly.
Freddie is obviously a Christmas movie. He's wearing an ugly sweater. I mean, what else do you want? It's a Christmas movie.
Exactly.
I mean, you just got to take the horror and keep pushing it to Christmas and get to the Christmas horror movies like Black Christmas and Krampus and good stuff.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it's been incredibly fun being able to do the 31 days countdown on there, because it forced me to not only narrow it down to 31 movies, which was tough enough, but to actually rank them in order. And then, be making these things with the back in my head going, what would Tom think about me putting this in number 7?
Because that's what really matters. That's the most important part, is how is Tom going to judge my list?
Seriously, though, whenever I put Jaws on there, when Jaws went on the list, because Jaws is on there, I literally was looking at it going, is he going to be okay with top 10, or does he want like top 5, top 3 on Jaws? Where does he want this? I'm like,
Jaws is not a horror movie.
Oh, and if you pay attention to the horror movies he picked, they have a common theme. It's the one thing that scares him the most: nature.
Okay. Nature.
Yep.
Nature.
I take him on. Look, I go to iJam's nature park in Knoxville. It's a small little park in the heart of the city. Someone decided to start target practice in their backyard, and he was convinced that some hillbilly was out there coming after us with a shotgun.
Saying, I've seen this movie, it didn't turn out well. I'm telling you right now.
He says that a lot. I take him on a hike and he's trying to pick everything apart in which it matches a horror movie, and something's going to come kill us. Mm-hmm. I try to get him to go swimming, and something in the water is going to get him.
Yep.
That's real. That I understand. That's real. 100%. The water is for suckers, man. The water is for suckers.
Exactly.
Especially when you're swimming in a lake and something touches your foot and you don't have any idea what the hell it is. This old fat gal might be big, but I can guarantee I can walk on. I won't walk on water. I will run on water.
Yep, exactly.
Well, see, I'm the person that was actually swimming in the Gulf Coast with sharks.
That's okay. No, I'm
I
good.
actually want to go through the theme park in Orlando and actually get in the water in a shark cage and actually be in the water with the sharks.
47 meters down.
The nature movie.
Yeah, but not the sequel. Not the sequel.
Not the sequel. No, not the sequel. The first one. That's why 47 meters down was so high on my list. It wasn't, down toward the lower, the more important numbers. It was in the high numbers because of the sequel. But yeah, she messes with me all the time. And my big thing is if I can't see the bottom of the water, I don't go into it. And then I did a review on the movie Crawl. And if you're familiar with the movie, Crawl is about the alligators in Florida on top of having a hurricane there. And the poster for that thing has actually got where she's under the water and you can clearly see all the way through that water and everything and see an alligator right above you. I don't care that I can't see the bottom of the water at that point. There's an alligator. I ain't going in there. Not happening. No, there's common sense to this one. She wants to go in there and go, ooh, pretties, and pet them and stuff. It's like, no.
I actually have pet the alligators.
Oh
before.
my gosh. Oy.
I've actually held an alligator.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how we got engaged. I don't. Black magic. But it's been a lot of fun being able to go through all that and look at a lot of the movies that are on there. I know that we can go ahead and we can have a discussion about some of the newer movies if we want to. Just try not to tear them up too much.
Trash.
Now, see, I consider his level of horror more juvenile because he's afraid of all the nature shows that are scary. But I like the ones that actually make my adrenaline flow and get my hairs on my neck raised and get me that fight or flight response. Movies like Annabelle, which terrified the bejesus out of me.
No. I'll put it in context here. You turned off the lights, so the lights are off, which is
How to
fine.
watch a horror movie in the dark.
I was on my phone looking at something, and you decided to jump scare me like 15 times in a row, which made me drop my phone a couple of times. And that's not scary at that point. Now, at that time, after being jump scared and knocking my phone down, and I'm on alert status at that point, yeah, it messes with me. So, yes. There has to be context to what you
Boy, that sounds familiar.
I mean, it was interesting, and I told her, I said, there's a place here in Tennessee that they have a basement deal, and they have like the paranormal, museum thing down there, and Annabelle is one of them. Inside the base with the sigils, etched into the glass and everything. You have to be purified before you go downstairs. You cannot touch the glass. You cannot speak. I mean, there's all kinds of rules to it, and I'm like, it'd be interesting, but I don't know.
Oh, I'm all for it. Take me down there.
And she's like, yeah, let's go. And I'm like, okay, calm down. First, let's look at all of these things first. They got that many rules. There's a reason. Let's see how many missing reports come out of that area.
I go down there and I get that adrenaline flowing feeling. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I like fast roller coasters, tall heights. I rock climb and yeah. I love that adrenaline rush.
See, I'm the type that I can go to an actual haunted house and ghost hunt. Doesn't bother me a bit at all. But if you take me into a haunted house or fun house, I will pop you in the mouth without even thinking about it. I've actually punched David in the mouth for jumping out on me one time because he jumped out on me and scared me. And I cannot go into a fun house because if anybody jumps out, I will pop them in the mouth without even thinking twice.
And they do. I mean, I remember whenever the haunted houses were, they could not touch you. They could not get near you. They could do whatever to make you jump scare, whatever out, like pop open a door right behind you. You never knew it was there, yell at you, and then go back in real quick. That was like the extent of it. Now you have to sign these waivers and all this stuff for them to actually be able to grab a hold of your arm or your leg from underneath or, do things like that and jump scare you that way. And I'm like, no, at that point, it's a fight.
Somebody's going to get hurt, and it's not going to be me.
Oh, yeah. I remember working a haunted house in high school, and this one was one of my most memorables because I was a vampire bride, and I was in this little
Uh-huh.
spot in the corner as the walkway come around, and I was in a blind corner, so no one saw the graveyard, the coffin, any of it as they came around. And I made sure to stand at the corner, up near the walkway at the very very front of the exhibit, and wait
Uh-huh.
until they came around and jump out at them. And you could hear them echoing, and this group come through, these football players with their girlfriends, their cheerleader girlfriends, and they were coming through. And the
Mhm.
one guy was boasting about how the haunted house wasn't scary, wasn't this or that. And as he come around and I jumped out at him, he started, I mean, big burly guy, probably Phil's stature, just, tall, big, just really big and muscular. And that boy jumped clean into the air, screaming like a little girl as he went running out of there. And the two cheerleaders that were with him just stood there dumbfounded, staring at me before they started cracking up, laughing at him because the way he took off running. You thought
That's awesome.
murdering the poor guy.
I mean, there have been
That is awesome.
some great movies in the past and everything. And I found this image I wanted to go ahead and bring up here real quick. This is like the homage of some of the best in the business that have been there. I don't know why Pennywise made it in there on the second one, but anyway. Personal preference. I like the original. I didn't like the remake so much. But I mean, some of the greats that are in there, Jack Nicholson, of course, did an amazing job in his role on there. He really took it to the next level. I loved Christine. That definitely made it on my list. Who can say no to Nosferatu? I mean, that guy, I mean, what did he do? He worked one movie and then quit because he's an actual vampire. He was not an actor.
Well, isn't that from Salem's Lot?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yes. From Salem's Lot. Yes.
Right.
So there's all kinds of cool stuff they have.
Yeah,
up
but
on
very, very based on Nosferatu.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is an interesting. It's a really interesting movie. It's a silent movie for those that don't know. So you have to be ready for what it is. But they also did a movie. I don't even know how to explain it. It's called Shadow of the Vampire, and basically, Shadow of the Vampire is the filming of Nosferatu, starring Willem Dafoe as Count Orlok. I had never seen Nosferatu before, and we were going to go see this Shadow of the Vampire movie. And so I was like, okay, I should probably see this movie before I go. I'm really glad I did. And I highly recommend this. Watch Nosferatu and then immediately watch Shadow of the Vampire. Just set aside 4 hours of your day and watch them back to back, because without the context of Nosferatu, Shadow of the Vampire doesn't have the bite that it will when you know what Nosferatu is. And they're so clever with what they do in Shadow of the Vampire, based on all of Nosferatu stuff. It's a really great back-to-back watch. But it is a silent movie, so you got to be ready to just, read the cue cards and, absorb the visual of it. It's a different experience. It's not even subtitles. It's just, shit happens, and then there's some words.
we couldn't watch a silent movie because all she's gonna do is jump scare me the entire time. It's completely silent. She's gonna have a blast with that. I know her. I know what she's gonna do with that.
Oh, see, I love doing the pranks with horror movies. I used to do them a lot.
Oh yeah.
My oldest daughter, when she turned, I think she was 15 when we let her watch the first scary movie. I was kind of I had a mother who traumatized me with scary movies at too young of an age, so I kind of, with my oldest, held off. My younger ones got to watch them a lot sooner, but it was Darkness Falls that we were watching with her. And towards the end of the movie, she had to go babysit for my sister. And towards the end of the movie, she didn't want to get up. She was begging me and my mom to turn the lights on. And so we did. And she went into the bathroom. And while she was in the bathroom, I shut all the lights out and I hid behind the basement door, which was right next to the bathroom door. So when she come out, she didn't realize the lights were out at first. And as soon as she flipped the bathroom light out, I jumped out at her from behind the basement door, and she went screaming through the house. And then later, after the movie was done, when her and my sister were actually leaving, My sister and I did not plan this, but she made my sister go out, turn the car around, and aim the headlights at the front porch because it was dark outside. And so as she's going outside, I flipped the porch light out exactly at the same moment my sister flipped the headlights out.
Mhm.
So she's standing in the middle of the front yard in almost complete pitch dark because all that's out there is one street lamp. And then the street lamp started to flicker and go out, and it went out. And then all I said was, "Oh my God, the tooth fairy's on top of the light pole." That was all I had to say. She went screaming, slid across the front hood of the car as if she was in a movie or something. And she was trying to get the door open. My sister had locked them on her, and she's screaming. The neighbors were coming out, flipping lights on to see what was going on.
In any other context, yelling "the tooth fairy's up there" would be the least scary thing possible that you could say.
Exactly. Well, that's like back in the day. It was we were fresh out of high school. Me and a bunch of my friends were over at the house. I had the Laserdisc player, so we were the cool kids at that time. And if you don't know what a Laserdisc player is, look it up, Google it, whatever you got to do, because I'm old. But we had the Laserdisc.
No.
We had the Laserdisc of Stephen King's It, the original, not this new remake stuff. And we were going to watch it, and one of the guys that said he was coming over there, he was like, "That's the stupidest movie ever. It's not scary. It never scares me, blah, blah, blah." So he came over. He ended up talking like through the whole thing and like mimicking the voice and all that, which was like, okay, it's fine, but we're all trying to, enjoy the movie. Well, little did he know, but we kind of thought, well, if he's going to be a kind of a jerk about this, we're going to have some fun with him. So before everybody came over for the movie, we went and got helium balloons and had them in the spare room and hid them in there. And so whenever the movie was over with and he went to the restroom, because, everybody goes to the restroom afterwards, especially after that long of a movie, because it's two-parter, we went out to his truck, tied the balloons to the bumper, and it's, pitch black out there. So we got out, got in his truck. He went to take off, and he took off down the road, got about 3 or 4 houses down, slammed on his brakes. You hear the squealing on the tire, slams on his brakes, gets out, flips us off something fierce, goes out there, cuts the balloons off of there, flips us off again, and hauls ass out of there. He was done. Can you imagine going off in your truck and you just see helium balloons in the rearview mirror doing this?
That's great.
We've had our fun with that too, and it's been kind of interesting with some of the prank scares that we've got out there. I know that Lady talked about she'd like to do more around here, and it can end up getting to a prank war if she's not careful between us. We'll see who scares first.
I mentioned earlier that my mom had let me watch horror movies from a very young age, and when I mean very young, I was 5 when Nightmare on Elm Street came out, and my mom let me watch it. And after watching it, I was afraid to go to bed. We were at my grandmother's house. My grandmother had a water bed, and my mom was forcing me to go to sleep on the water bed. It had one of these ledges because it didn't have the drawers. It just had the ledge. My mom actually, as I was dozing, went in the kitchen and taped foil to her fingers to make them look like knives. And then she laid down on the ledge of the water bed and started singing the Freddy Krueger song as she brought her hand up and grabbed my belly with her claw. I was 5 when she did that. It scared the bejesus out of me.
It's a fun time of year. It can definitely be fun.
Oh yeah.
Now I got to ask, what are some of the newer movies that you've actually enjoyed that have been horror movies that have come out somewhat recently? And Tom's like, "Nah, skip it."
This is a tiny list, man. This is a really tiny list.
Have any of them come out that have caught your attention? Does anybody have any of them?
The only one that I really liked recently, this would have been last year. I think it was last year. Yeah, it had to be last year. Was The Conjuring 3.
Okay.
But I like them all anyway. And this was kind of a different one than the other two, but I did like it. That's the only one that really kind of jumps to mind that I actually liked. A lot of the other ones that I've seen were just kind of these puff piece things like the Unholy remake and just really just kind of missing the mark kind of movies. But Conjuring 3 I thought was pretty good for being the third movie in a freaking series of films.
Right. Because usually you can kind of catch a diamond in the rough on 2, the sequel type thing, and then by 3 it's straight to video quality. It's nothing good added to it. So it's interesting that they actually kind of work towards making movies that good again, because some of the other ones, even the newer ones, what's the trilogy? Oh yeah, Halloween just had a trilogy. Yeah.
Erase it all. Like, find all the negatives, find all the footage. Like, I'm sorry, Jamie Lee Curtis, those are shitty movies. I mean, they are just shitty movies, all of them.
I think I lost interest after about the 3rd one.
Well, you're talking about the originals. You're not talking about these remakes from Rob Zombie.
The remakes aren't Rob Zombie. The remakes are Blumhouse. I mean, there was a Rob Zombie thing as well, which that's another thing. But these things were Blumhouse films, and I knew immediately as soon as Danny Masterson was part of these things, I was like, we have a problem, Houston. This is a big problem. And they didn't let me down, man. Boy, was it problematic. I've never seen a series of movies just go right off a cliff, because even if you can take the first one as okay, I can live with what's happening here, even though it was highly derivative of H2O. There was just nothing new to it. In fact, it was an opposite reaction, right? It was we're going to strip it clean of all of the things that you guys know. Jamie Lee Curtis isn't his sister anymore. Everything that we know is gone, and it's just we're going to start fresh. Okay, I can do that, but bring me something. You got to bring me something to replace everything that you're stripping away. And they brought absolutely nothing. And then in the second one, I could have never imagined just right off the cliff for part 2. But then, holy crap, they went right to the bottom of the cliff with part 3, and just tremendous explosion, and everything needs to just be forgotten.
I will agree on that one for sure. Jade, what are some favorite horror movies of yours?
Yeah, in the last couple of years, I would say some that really caught my attention would be like nothing that was like huge releases. Most of them like were small indie releases and stuff like that. Anything that was like minorly big would be like have to be like Midsummer. Midsummer really stood out to me as it was intense. Same director as Hereditary, also incredibly intense. Very tense movies. Like, it was all just about building the setting, and the score played into it. I thought those were really interesting. Beyond that, like, I would have to say that, like, yeah, like, this Halloween movies are such a letdown. I was excited by the prospect, and then, yeah, you're right, Tom. They just kind of did not deliver on what they were kind of promising. Beyond that, oh man, I'm racking my brain, because like it's so easy to pick out good horror movies from the 80s. It's just like there's full of good stuff. Some in the 90s, although a little dicier in the 90s. But then, yeah, lately I would say everything that was good is smaller, tiny releases. Like 2020, we're kind of like coming out of a bubble. And so I'm like, man, what was the last one I saw in a theater that I actually liked? Like, I saw Black Phone, and I thought it was like fine. I don't know. It didn't really do it for me. And oh man, I guess like one small one that like is surprising that I really, really liked that just came out, and it has no reason to be good, but it scared the hell out of me, was this movie called Horror in the High Desert. And it's a found footage film. And essentially it's kind of like it takes place as like a mockumentary about this missing person who goes missing in Nevada. And, it runs just like a typical, like, true crime kind of documentary, like really, relaying evidence, and, oh, maybe it was this roommate, and, oh, maybe it was the sister, and, oh, maybe it was this scorned lover. And then at the end, they find this footage of his last moments, and they play the footage of his last moments. And it's a little cheesy, but it works. It's simple. It was a small indie release, and it works. Yeah, I dug it. I really like that one.
Well, I mean, sometimes the independent and the unknown actually have a better way of doing that because there's more passion put into what's out there. So they're not going for the dollar signs scenario. They're going for, hey, we might get, some people that actually like this thing. Go figure that's actually the mentality that should be out there for the movies, but that's the way that it is. And, you mentioned some of those on there like that, like some of mine on my list. The Burrowers was one of mine on my list, which I actually enjoyed because it's based in the Old West. So you don't have the technology that you would have to actually, kind of go after and figure out what's going on with these things. And the way that these creatures actually capture their prey, they capture them, then they give them, they induce them with this paralysis thing, and then they bury them in like this much dirt. I mean, it's not much at all. And they're barely like got their fingers out of the dirt or, an eyeball sticking out every once in a while type thing. And then they feed on them whenever they want to. That's the whole premise of what's going on with that. And it was interesting because it was one of those that's like, how do you deal with it back in the Old West? So whenever it was happening, it was very low light situations, especially they come out at night. You don't have, infrared or night vision or anything like that. So whenever scares happen there, they're happening for real. Cause if you're away from the fire at that time, you can't see anything.
So basically, Phil is just afraid to be eaten. This is what we're. This is what it's all coming down to, right?
Right.
A common thing, we're afraid of being eaten by something in the wild.
And I mean, that's not unreasonable. I understand. Don't get eaten. Like that's a good thing. Don't get eaten. But yeah.
Exactly. You're going to blame me for wanting to get eaten? I mean, how can I get blamed for that? Oh, yeah. Christy, what are some movies that come to your mind that really kind of stand out a little bit?
Oh gosh, it's been a while since I've actually sat and watched a horror movie. Of course, I'm the classic, like the Friday the 13th, especially the Nightmares. The most two recent ones that I saw is The Orphan. I forgot what it's the second one to the original Orphan, about the little girl that's a woman that's posing as a little girl. The second one, that one, it's got a hell of a twist to it. And also 13 Fanboy that I had mentioned earlier, and it's the same way. And those are the two of them that I've really, really enjoyed here recently.
Now, you guys, I mean, of all days, I mean, obviously they picked today for a reason, but it was announced today that what's his name? The original scriptwriter for Friday the 13th, Miller. Zach Miller? I don't know. It's Miller. Anyway, Paramount Plus, Paramount or Peacock has ordered up a prequel series for Friday the 13th called Crystal Lake. So
right, I think Adrienne King put that on her website too, on her Facebook page.
They've been talking about that for a while because the original scriptwriter got the rights back to Friday the 13th, and so, but only the original movie. So he doesn't get Jason Unmasked, he doesn't get anything, but he gets the lake, the camp, the original concept. So the thought process here is this is going to be in some way a Mrs. Voorhees story to some capacity. I still haven't quite figured out how you tell any sort of expansive story with that. But we'll see what it is.
And I hope they do it right. I really do, because like I said, that's one of my favorite franchises is the Friday the 13th, and I'll give it a shot. The 13th Fanboy has got a lot of some of the originals in it, and it's really good too. I mean, like I said, it's got a hell of a twist.
I think the problem with the prequel, though, is that you don't get Jason. I mean, you can have kid Jason, obviously, but it's not like, because immediately what came to mind, I was like, has this ever been done before? And I realized Bates Motel did this. Bates Motel was actually really good, except you had Norman. He was part of the story. He was a kid, but he was legitimately in the story. I don't know how you have Mongoloid Jason like as part of this story, right? In any I don't know. It's very strange to me. I'm curious as what they'll do. I'm certainly going to give this a try to see how it works, but I feel like it's too limited. Like this box is too small, but maybe these guys have some wild idea. We get to see Jason's dad. I mean, like, what happened to Jason's dad, man?
It's the same thing
Yeah.
of Star Wars, of like giving us the backstory of Vader. I'm sorry, I don't care. I want Vader to be scary Vader. I don't care about Anakin, coming from Tatooine. Don't care. I just want Vader to be scary. And then they just kind of make him, I don't know, they make him human, and they take away the Vaderness of it all, and it's just like you're ruining like the build up to all of like what George Lucas originally done. And so then you take that same idea and you go to horror movies, and like it's the same thing is happening over. It's like we're giving the classic villains, the full kind of character treatment. It's, I kind of like think of it as like the Disneyfication of like horror, right? It's just, we just had the Hocus Pocus 2 just came out, right? And like the big thing that they do in that is they make them the heroes instead of the villains that they were in the original. And it's like, yeah, you say what you will about Hocus Pocus, but it was a fun kids movie. And they just kind of take it and they like true Disney fashion, and Disney owning Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. They just take the villains and they just put a big rainbow on them, and they make them just safe. And these characters are safe now, and they're no longer the dangerous villains that like we like them. I like Freddy and I like Jason to be scary, and then when we make them a little kid, I don't care anymore, and they're not scary to me anymore.
Well, but see, in this case, Jason has always been technically a sympathetic villain. I mean, he's literally just mommy's boy. So I don't know that there's anything that you can do with Jason as a character to modify what happens to him and what he becomes, even if you just look at the first 2 movies and leave the rest alone. All he does in the second one is go and kill the chick that killed his mom. Spoiler alert. And after that, he goes home and until the people come into the camp, and he's like,
late.
I didn't know he was going there.
He's like, okay, fuck you all, get out of my camp. But if you go backwards, I mean, ultimately, it's not like even with Bates Motel, right? Like we got a lot of Norman because it's Norman's story, but I don't think this is going to be Jason's story. Like this has to be, because there's no value there. We already know, dude drowns, dies, comes back somehow. I'll be curious to see if they do anything when they do really get deep into this, if they do anything with what Adam Marcus did in Freddy Goes to Hell with the Necronomicon and all of the concept that he's a deadite and all that kind of stuff. But that's the thing, is like they don't have the rights to that stuff. They only have the first movie, so all you can do is sort of take a step back and tell Mrs. Voorhees' story with Freddy's dad, Jason's dad, or whatever. Or obviously it's Chris Coastal Lakes. It's going to be a camp story. But I don't think in the end that you can really dissolve Jason in any real way with this story, because he still drowns, dies, mom comes back as the vengeance, she gets killed, he sees her die, and he grows up. I mean, you really can't, there's nothing to change there within the character. Vader, there was definitely character to add, move, change. I mean, there was a story prior to Vader, but Jason was like 10 years old or something when he died. So there's no Jason story unless something happens to him to make him the Mongoloid kid. Like if he was normal and then something happened, like he was in a car accident or something, like that's the only thing I can see to like make it where you modify the character in any way. But I don't that seems like a big stretch to kind of do that. So I don't know.
I get it. I totally get that. But like, we never really see that stuff. It's always just kind of implied. And I think like part of what makes the legend interesting is when we don't see it. What's scarier is not seeing it. It's just like you go to cat people, we never see like the monster. We see the impressions of the monster. And I feel like if we get too much and fill all in the gaps and stuff like that, like what's actually scary is not there anymore.
But Jason wasn't scary as a kid, right? When we're watching Friday the 13th and we're watching this kid drowned, the scary part is he's drowning. Like, where are the adults? Why is this kid drowning? What the hell's going on? And then mom is the scary part. She's the one that's actually like, okay, I'm killing you all because my kid drowned. So I don't know that there's a story for Jason in a prequel that can modify him just being the kid that drowned because counselors were screwing. I don't know how you modify that character. I'm sure there's a way. I'm a writer. Give me 10 minutes. I'll find a way. But, you know, I think it's a Mrs. Voorhees story. I think Jason will probably be very background. And I think it'll depend on how far they want to, or how closely they want to connect it to the first movie. Like, do they want to do like 2 or 3 seasons and then end with him drowning? Or, you know, is this going to be like literally like when Mrs. Voorhees met Mr. Voorhees and, you know, they found out that they were brother and sister and that's why Jason is what he is? Like, who the hell knows? But I don't think you can really screw Jason's character up because his character is not, there is no character. It's a kid that drowned. He's pissed off that someone killed his mom. And now people keep coming around his house and, you know, that, and then that's it. And then of course, when you get to part 3, then it all goes batshit crazy because he starts to leave the camp for some unknown reason. Part 4, gets killed, you know, literally killed. And then he's brought back to life in part 6 as like a legitimate, like Frankenstein zombie guy. So, it's a pretty fucked up story to begin with. And we did an interview with Adam Marcus a couple of years ago, and we talked about all Friday the 13th, including his movie. And he was talking about how it's so the system, the movies are all so screwed up. If you just think about from the first movie to the second movie, Jason gets way too old, way too fast. And that's part of where Adam Marcus starts to come in and talk about him being a Deadite and his mom used the Necronomicon to raise him from the dead. And I don't know if any of you guys caught any of that stuff in Freddy Goes to Hell. Freddy Goes to Hell. No, Jason Goes to Hell. And what was really funny was I had never seen Army of Darkness or any of those movies at the time. So when I saw Jason Goes to Hell, none of that connected to me. I was like, what in the hell is going on? So when I actually talked to Adam Marcus, and he kind of filled in all those pieces for me. I was like, Jesus, this is a way better movie than I thought it was. But yet he knows it's Friday the 13th, and he starts to like timeline this thing backwards. And he's like, none of this makes any sense, guys. None of this makes any sense with Jason. And so I don't know. I don't see how you can really screw up Jason. If you can do Norman Bates and do it well, you can probably deal with 10-year-old weird Jason prior to his drowning accident.
Well, what are some other horror like TV shows that y'all have watched that y'all have really paid attention to and thought were pretty good?
Wow, that's hard too. That's really hard.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the one that I was really disappointed in. Not in it, and they got canceled. This was a number of years ago. This is going back about 10 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Was a show called The River. And it was done by the guys who made all the Paranormal Activity movies. Mm-hmm. And so it was sort of a found footage, not really found footage, more like a documentary style footage thing, but it was done with these cameras at like a really weird angles because they're on a boat going through the Amazon. So they just theoretically have these cameras like stuck to the boat so that as people are wandering around, you know, you get to see what they're doing. And it was really, really good. And I understand why people didn't latch onto it. A lot of people have trouble with the found footage stuff. And, you know, if it's not like your normal movie, like their head isn't wrapping around what's going on. But it was really, really good. It had a great cast and it had one of the greatest endings I've ever seen. And then when it was canceled, I was just like, no, you can't do this to me. So at the end of this thing, they solve their goal, right? They get what they need done. And they're trying to head out of, I'm not telling you what the goal is, but I'm going to tell you what this part is. They're heading out of the Amazon on the boat, right? And they're just tooling down and they're like, oh my God, we're done. We're out of here. Let's get the hell out of here. And the guy who's driving the boat is like, I think we took a wrong turn. Something's wrong. And they're like, here's the map. We should be here, but it looks like we're over here. Something's not right. And they start to see like the scenery around them kind of like sort of move, you know, to create like a different channel in the river. And the one character goes, it's not going to let us out. And then it pulls back out from the boat and the river, and then you see all the jungle, and the entire jungle is just moving, like just completely shifting and removing to like keep them in the jungle. And I was like, holy shit, that is awesome. And we're canceled. Okay, thanks. Appreciate that. That's great. Thanks, guys. It is on DVD if you guys want to get it. Go get it. I don't think it's streaming anywhere, but it's a really cool show if you like that. Again, sort of pseudo found footage style.
I know recently, Lady Trish and I have started watching The Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix. We're only 2 episodes in, and we are hooked.
That's it. It's as good as it gets.
Well, my only drawback right now is I can't understand Guillermo whenever he's going ahead and introducing everything.
His voice is very low. Yeah.
Well, and the accent is so hard too, and low, that it's like I can't follow through with what he's talking about, and then it just goes into the show, and I'm like, okay, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
he's no Rod Serling. He's no Rod Serling.
Exactly. But it does have that feel. You bring that up. It does have that
sure.
feel of Twilight Zone on there with a modern day twist, and I like that because there's some messed up stuff that's happening so far in just the 2 episodes, and I think there's 8 episodes total. It's a short, thing on there, but it seems like it's worth it so far. But that's definitely one that we're watching together that we're enjoying. One that I have watched that I am a diehard fan. Lady Trish has not watched as of yet, but she will be. Supernatural. That thing went so many seasons. Tom's tuning out.
I gave it a chance. That's just Dukes of Hazzard meets the X-Files. I can't. I can't.
I enjoyed it. I mean, I watched it from the first night that it started. I actually got to call the radio station the next morning whenever they're asking people what they thought about the first pilot episode, and I got on there, and only to find out that the what's his name, Eric Kripke, the creator of it, was actually on the phone call just being quiet while I was on there. And I found that out after I was done, and they went ahead and said, thanks for calling in, and I hung up, and then he comes on the radio going, I really like what that guy said about that, and I'm like, oh, he was there. But it's really kind of stuck with me, and sticking with the whole thing and watching it all the way through, really kind of, you are invested in it. So if you stop watching and then try to go back to it or something, it really messes with you. But the reason I bring that up is because now they have their spinoff series, The Winchesters, and I'm actually doing part of my What's on Your Watch list. That's one of my shows right there. I'm going to tell you right now, and Lady Trish knows this, I was so hesitant about watching the first episode because I kept going, what if it's bad? What if this is just because the way they left Supernatural whenever they ended the entire series was so well-rounded, so done, then I'm like, okay, what if they screw everything up with just the first pilot episode of Winchesters? And I'm like, that's the last thing that I'm going to remember of this, saga is this here. Well, I ended up watching episodes 1 and 2 came out, watched both of them, pretty freaking hooked, watched episode 3, and they still had that same feel. I don't know how they're doing it, but it's the same feel of watching Supernatural all over again, but with the prequel story is what they're going with. So as from a writing standpoint, you were just talking about how they can take something and go with the prequel on there and do it a whole different way, but still tie things in. This is doing that, but there's a twist in there too, because one of the main characters is actually in this timeline, and he's supposed to be not only dead, but he's not even born yet. So if that really wraps your mind around some stuff there, that's really messed up. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm enjoying it. It's got a good feel to it. And then, of course, the entities that are in there are interesting. They didn't spare any expense, on doing the creatures and all, which I'm glad. So I'm enjoying it. It's a fun thing, and it's got the fun element and kind of a little more comedy, involved in there at times whenever it needs to be. And I don't know, I'm enjoying that. But you haven't watched it yet. You said
I watched the first 2 episodes when it very first aired and had no interest.
Yeah, see.
High five.
See, we're
I even gave it more than that.
A lot that he says is absolutely amazing shows. They're super scary, and then I sit here and I watch them, and I'm like, it's okay.
I gave it, I think, 5 or 6. And certainly I know that a show like that can evolve over time, because if you look at something like the X-Files in its original season, it was very sort of monster of the week and so on. and it took a season or so or two to kind of start to build its continuity and find what it is. So I get that. But with Supernatural, the idea that there's 15 seasons, I'm 51 years old, dude. I don't have that kind of time to dedicate to pray that this thing, you know, latches on to me at some point. So
Right.
it's a no-go for me. I gave it, I understand why people like it for sure. But like I said, it's basically the X-Files with the Dukes of Hazzard in the car. Like, I get it. It's fine. But
Hey, don't be talking bad about Baby. That Impala
there's
is
too much.
perfect. That is
Too much.
far.
Like, maybe if it was 10 seasons or 9, like a normal fucking show and not one of these ridiculous things, maybe I would give it an extra go. But 15 seasons, man, like full seasons too, like 20 episodes, right? Are they like 20 episode seasons?
20 to 24, yeah.
Yeah. So like a lot of stuff now is like 8 episodes. Like you can kind of be like, okay, I can take a weekend and watch a season, but 20 episodes, man, that's a lot of content for 15 years.
The question is, it seemed like too much of a soap opera type thing. It had too much of a soap opera vibe to it.
We have to have a talk next time before you come on here.
That's my honest opinion. I was not into it.
I mean, those of us diehard fans of Supernatural know that seasons 5 and 6 were kind of like not essential by any means, and it really threw off the tempo of the series. But then they came back and they revisited them in later seasons that really made sense to revisit them. But again, you really didn't need those seasons. So to have those added in really threw it off for me as well. But you still have to watch the whole thing to understand how some things played out in there. But it's really cool how they take the entire story and just wrap the entire thing. Because you go back in season 15, you're going back and wrapping things up from the entire series. Things that were unanswered, things that were undone, and just go through it that way, which was just interesting to me because, again, I was vested in it because I've been watching it since it started. But that was a fun one. I mean, Tom's got The River. Jade, what do you have? You got any good shows you've been watching or have watched?
Yeah. I really like the Mike Flanagan kind of horror TV shows. So you get his version of Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, and then Midnight Mass is, I think, my favorite because it's just, I mean, it's a spoiler alert. It's a straight up vampire story, and you kind of never see it coming.
I got to tell you about that show, right? Like, I tried to watch that show, and I watched a couple episodes. And I'm like, this is fucking retarded. And then somebody else that liked you watched it, and we were talking about it, and they were like, and they told me the big spoiler, and I was like, Jesus Christ! If they had told me that in this is what it's going to be, I would have been in, and I would have just been like, let's go, show me how this works. But because I didn't know at that point, and I only got so far, I was like, I'm really bored. I feel like marketing on some of this stuff really misses the mark. Like they're almost trying to be too quiet about it. Like, let's not tell them our twist, you know. But you know, we've all seen so much content nowadays that like, just tell us what's going on, man.
Exactly.
Sure. And then the other one that I really liked that canceled after one season, but it was on Prime, is called Truth Seekers, and it was a British show that followed like Nick Frost, and he was kind of he played kind of an Amazon, but they call it Smile in the TV show, like Install Man, and he was a paranormal investigator, and the whole mystery ensues. These cast of characters kind of like come in, and so it's Nick Frost, and then Simon Pegg plays a side character, and it's British. It's kind of cozy. It feels like a cozy mystery. I mean, a lot of like good British shows just feel like a nice sweater that you put on, and it's just, oh, this is nice. So I'll drink some tea. I'll watch this show. But like, it had some good good scares in it, and some like good stuff that like get to the end of it, and that's it. That's all they're gonna make. And there were questions that were unanswered when you get to the end, and it's such a bummer because I thought it had legs. I thought it was hilarious. There were some really great characters in it, and then just nowhere. It's such a bummer. But I mean, you know, like there's such great history of like TV show. I will admit, I started Supernatural and never finished it. I think I got to where the Leviathans appeared, and I was like,
Season 5.
That's
Yes.
me, and I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
done. And then I same thing with because Supernatural and Buffy, I think, are similar in so many ways, especially the fandoms of those two things. And Buffy is another one that I got to where as soon as Buffy's mom died, I was like, I'm done. Like after that, I bailed, and I've never finished it.
I'm just going to say that prior to starting out this entire show tonight and everything, Lady Trish and I were engaged to be married next year. That's past tense. Razzing on me about a bunch of different stuff over here, Supernatural and Buffy and all. So it's like,
You like Buffy?
to a degree. I mean, it's not a fandom
He's
thing
over
like
here
Supernatural.
saying that because I whispered Buffy was worse than Supernatural.
But I mean, speaking, we brought up the Twilight Zone, and there's a new Twilight Zone that came out. I think it was like 2 years ago. It was Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone, and I would also say there were some good episodes on that. There was it was decent. They kind of did a new version of that classic William Shatner episode with Adam Scott, and I thought it was like, oh man, this is really tight, very tight episode. Like really solid writing through it. I don't know, so there are some good horror TV shows, almost more than there are good modern horror films, I feel like, in some regards.
Oh yeah, definitely. Christy, what about you? I mean, something that stands out and something that you
Oh
watch?
gosh. Well, I know I'm gonna catch hell with one of them, but I really got hooked on American Horror Story. I got up to the summer camp one. That's the last one that I saw. I really got into that. And this one's not really a horror. I don't know if you want to call it a horror. Is What We Do in the Shadows. I absolutely love that movie.
Oh,
I love the
so
movie
good.
and I love the TV series. But those are the main two that I've stuck. The American Horror Story I quit with the summer camp. But What We Do in the Shadows, whenever it's on, that TV goes on, and I do not leave until it's over with. Because if nobody's seen the movie,
is the best.
get the movie. Exactly. But if nobody's seen the movie, get it and watch it, because it is absolutely hilarious.
See, she's telling you to get it and watch it.
First season of American Horror Story was brilliant to me. I loved the first season of American Horror Story. I couldn't finish the second season. I've dove into a few others. I thought for sure the camp one would be like, dude, this is going to bring me right back to this show. And it just didn't. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I love the idea that they switch all the locations and stuff, and some of the actors come back. Conceptually in my brain is telling me, dude, you should like this. What are you doing? But I'm like, I don't like it. But the first season, 100%. I love that first season.
Right.
Fantastic.
I think it was the third season that they dealt with the witches, third or fourth season. Okay. I really enjoyed that one too. That was one of my favorite ones.
Like the second one, they were in the insane asylum, and then there were aliens or something. I'm like, I didn't even finish it. And then there was Roanoke, which I was like, okay, this is like Roanoke, the mystery of Roanoke, and I'm like, nothing's happening. I don't understand what's going on. And then the camp one, I was ready for it. I was like, yeah, bring me the camp thing.
Right.
And fell flat.
Besides those, I usually watch paranormal, caught on camera, actual ghost hunts and stuff like that. But David used to get so mad at me because I'd watch paranormal caught on camera, and I'm like, no. He'd look at me and goes, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, no. Like that, because you could pick up on, what is actually there and what's not. But that'd be about the only ones that I watch.
See, that stuff for me, I have no belief in any of it. There's no reason none of it's set up. You know what I mean? That's the problem that I have with it. It's like there's no possible way for them to prove to me that whatever it is that they're doing is not set up. And so that's what it's interesting to watch, right? But there's a disconnect for me because it's too easy to fake creaks and moans and that kind of stuff. So
we lived in we lived on a farmhouse for over 30 years that was haunted. So I've seen stuff and been around some stuff that scares the shit out of you if you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it catches you off guard.
Well, and I'm not saying it's not real. Like, I'm not saying that stuff doesn't exist and happen, but when I'm watching it on
Right.
TV, like, it feels like this would be very easy to just set this up
Right.
and make, you know what I mean? Because it's entertainment. All of it has to be entertainment. So you can't go into a ghost house and have nothing happen, because then there's no episode.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but it's like something happens, like, what was that? No, you don't do that. I mean, you just kind of, I mean, first you have to go clean your britches out, and then you say, what was that? So.
Now, speaking of, because you got the perfect segue to go into this next one here, and I'm really grateful for asking this, but what scares everyone? And I know you're chomping at the bit. You go last, because you're gonna tell mine last. I know you are. So, what scares everyone? You know, the one thing that's like, no, we're not doing that. I've seen the movie; it didn't turn out well. I want to start with Tom on this one. What scares you? And not just bad writing.
You know, there's really only two things in horror, and one's not really horror, but it freaked me out because of personal problems. There's only two things that really legitimately scared me, and it was The Exorcist, and that's hung with me for basically my whole life. And part of that was because I saw it when I was like 8, in a pitch black basement of my dad's house when I had no business watching it. So it kind of gave me a scar because I was watching it too young. But even since then, just sort of the existential element of it, that, like, you know, the demon or the devil or whatever it is can sort of get you, you know, whenever it decides it wants to get you. Mm-hmm. But I have no problem with like other possession movies or anything. It's The Exorcist and the way that it was done that really did something to me. Like, I'll go watch The Exorcism, Emily Rose, and it's like that. I don't give a shit about that stuff. Oh my, look at me, I'm creepy and I'm freaking, like, I don't care. But The Exorcist did something to me. And then the other one, this isn't really a horror movie unless you have the same problem that I do, which is claustrophobia. Is a Ryan Reynolds movie that most people don't know exists. It's called Buried.
Yes.
And basically it's about a guy in like Iraq or something, like during the war. And the idea is they would capture people and bury them alive and, you know, basically try to ransom them off and, you know, whatever they, just to, you know, get whatever they wanted. And so I'm watching this movie and I'm like, well, this sounds kind of cool, thinking that it's like a normal movie, right? Yes, we're going to be Ryan Reynolds like in the box, but we're also going to see like the FBI trying to save him and whatever. So the movie starts with him in the box and he's waking up and he's kind of figuring out where he is and what's going on. And you know, he finds like there's a phone in there and, you know, just little things. But the way that it's filmed, dude, not only is dude in the box, but you're in the box with him. I mean, it's filmed in such a way that you're in that damn box and you never leave the damn box, because even when he's talking to the FBI guys, there's no cutaway to like, I'm agent, whatever. It's just, he's just talking to him on the phone. Like, help me get me out of this box. I literally had to stand up and walk and pace back and forth so that I knew that I could move to be able to finish watching the movie, because I have severe claustrophobia. So that really screwed me up. I really like the movie. It's a great movie. And it is an absolute tour de force by Ryan Reynolds for this context of what he's doing. And I often will go look for the Blu-ray to like, I want to get that. I'm like, I'm never watching that again. So why would I buy this movie? So that's and again, I'm with Phil. I don't want to be eaten. So, you know, I don't jump off the boat into the ocean and do those kinds of things. But yeah, as far as like real, like dread, fear, like The Exorcist, like put something on me. And it's still there.
And I'm going to bring up real quick because Lost Hope Entertainment, Tim Ingram is in here, and he said spiders for me. And the movie that movie wise is Things from the Final Destination. telling you right now, I still go down the freeway, and I know most people are going to say the same thing. You see a log truck over there, you got a chance to either go behind it or haul ass around that thing and get away from it. You get away from it.
I literally pulled up to a stop
Exactly.
sign today on my way home, and there was a truck with a whole bunch of spikes sticking out the back. And I went to go get a picture of it because I was like, "Y'all are not gonna believe what just happened on Halloween." But then the light went and we went. So
No. Yeah, take a picture like that. Be like, look what's coming towards me.
yeah, this is the before shot. The after shot will be on the news.
Oh, well, Jay, what about you? What are some things that scare you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like horror movies, you know, like it's all atmosphere. I think like the mood and whatnot is really what's going to like end up getting under my skin and sticking with me so much longer than any kind of like jump scare. While those are like fun and will get you, and you know, but like if the mood is built up right and whatnot, like they'll just linger with me like for a really long time, and I'll just like feel like a lot of times I feel like I'm kind of an empath, and so I think that like I'll feel what is being produced in the movie, and it's just like that feeling will just stay with me, and it's tough to shake sometimes. But I think that like in terms of other things outside of that are more broad, I would say it's the things that normally feel safe that then when are twisted, it becomes like you see how unsafe those normally mundane everyday things are, but you see the other side of those. So I live in Montana, and so we have a lot of like really wide open spaces here. And so I think something for me is like any movie that can kind of let that twist is specifically that of like the love of like getting out in nature, being completely alone, and then take that idea and twist the knife, and then you're like, well, now I'm uncomfortable being out alone, you know. And I think that like you know, movies or books or anything that can like take something that just feels so ordinary and mundane and then make that scary. I think that's like, to me, when there's something that feels original in a movie or something like that, it's because of that it does it for me. And then it will stick with me forever. I'm like, well, now I can't see like a flock of birds just, you know, sitting on a wire anymore without thinking about Alfred Hitchcock, right? And Tippi Hedren just like hauling ass, right? Like, these everyday mundane things are just gone because now they're just replaced with like worst case scenarios in all of these things. Yeah.
Case scenarios. That's exactly right.
So I think that's all of them for me. Like, and I mean, it's not to say that like those every movie that takes that and does that premise is going to be good. Like, I don't know if you all remember the movie ATM, and it was just, it's like, oh yeah, you know, like you're at an ATM booth late at night. It's like, sure, this is a fine premise, and then the movie, you know, really rough. But you know, there are movies that like can really capitalize on that idea, or books or whatever, of just the everyday becoming not what you think it is.
Yeah, and that is true because taking something that could actually happen and then just having that extra, you know, in the back of your head because you've seen movies or heard, you know, read things, whatever. Just like with Final Destination, perfect example. I mean, the log truck. How many times before you'd seen that movie, you'd been like, "Oh, cool! Look at those huge logs, and it's cool to ride right beside it, and look how big they are."
Exactly.
You watch Final Destination, you're like, "Nope," and you all ass past it. You go as fast.
I think that's what can be so much fun about horror is that like it's not like it's not like it invents new terrors for everybody, but it takes things that just are like inherent and maybe are just in the back of your mind, and it shines a flashlight on them. And I think that like good horror does that, like is takes those subconscious fears and then shows them to everybody. And I think that's
exactly. Christy, what are some things that scare you?
Oh God. Now this is gonna be giving my age away. Back when I was younger, there was a movie out. I think it was in the 70s or late 70s called Snow Beast with Bo Svensson. And there's just one scene in there that sticks to my mind to this day. It's where the Bigfoot is actually pressed up against the window looking in at people doing at a dance, and everybody's running. Just that scene alone of him pressing his face up against the window scares the crap out of me. And the other movie that really kind of gets under my skin is Fire in the Sky.
Ooh.
That is the main two that just sets my paranoia off in a heartbeat.
See, she don't like going in the woods either. See, same thing. Nana, nana.
No, I love to camp and I love to hunt, but you don't know there's so much out. You don't know what's out there, so that's why I don't do it anymore.
If you want a movie that's going to ruin camping, the Bobcat Goldthwait, the director, his movie Willow Creek. There's a scene right in the middle of the movie where they're just in the tent and it's all sound. It's just the soundscape of the scene, and it's brilliant. Oh,
yep.
You'll never sleep in a tent and think, oh, that's twig snap. That's just normal. It's fucking Bigfoot forever.
That was unbelievable. I was not prepared for that. Like, I was literally almost turning that movie off, and I was like, this is just, I know there's a point, guys, but get to it. And then it got to it. It's like, goddamn, that was a scene. That was the scene.
Well, Lady Trish, what are some things that scare you? Not me. Scare you.
Scare me?
There is not right much next to her.
There is not much movie-wise. There's not much horror movie-wise that has scared me. I mean, yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street did when I was a kid, thanks to what my mom did. But only thing I ever remember that ever gave me that, I can't step out of the room without the lights on, I am completely terrified, was actually a book, not a movie. And it was Stephen King's original, not unabridged version of It.
Things that big.
Yeah, it's a huge one. My mom got it. She was part of his fan club. And I do remember the controversy around it. It was out about 6 weeks on the newsstands when they yanked it because they said it was too graphic and too violent. And they had it pulled. I am telling you, after reading that thing, I would not turn any lights out at all for weeks. And I think it was a good couple of months before I could go past a sewer drain walking down the street without crossing to the other side of the street to avoid it, or thoroughly checking the inside of the toilet before sitting down, afraid a monster was going to pop out and drag me through it. That book was extremely gruesome, extremely detailed, and it really got to me.
And now, look, he's right behind you with the dead eyes looking straight at you.
Honestly, the movies were a huge letdown after reading that book.
Was that all that scared you?
Pretty much.
That's it?
That was the only thing I could think of that's ever scared me like that. You gotta think, Mom had me watching horror movies at the age of 5. I think actually earlier than that. The earliest horror movie I remember watching was called Rats. I think I was 3 years old. It's this obscure movie from the late 70s, and the biggest scene that scared me on that one was the rats coming out of the basement to drag an infant out of its high chair and down the stairs to eat it. And I remember hiding my face and screaming, and I had nightmares for a long time after that. I was actually afraid of rats for a long time after that. But just being exposed to it from such a young age, there's not much in the horror industry that actually scares me.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't have time talking about mine, do we?
Yeah, we do. One of my favorites, and I was over here teasing him a second ago when he made the comment about me telling his. I'm like, really, you're going to put that on me? I said, there's too many to tell. But no, I think aside from being afraid of being eaten alive, I think his biggest one, and I'm judging this from his reaction when I mentioned it being one of my favorite movies, is The Grudge. That creepy specter, body all contorting, hair hanging in front of the face really freaks him out.
I told you the reason, because I had bought the movie. We had just moved into a house, into a new house. And what do you do whenever you move into a new house? You don't unbox anything. You don't bring out any clothes or anything. You bring out the electronics, the TV, the movie player, all the surround sound, all goes out in place before anything else gets unpacked. So the rest of the family was going to sleep because it was late, and it was after midnight or so. I mean, it was late. So I had the lights out because I didn't want to wake them up. So all I got is the flicker of the, the lights from the TV, and it's kind of low on the sound, but it's in surround sound, and it's, all the way wraparound surround sound. And the scene, and it's toward the beginning of it, where they look up into the attic and that creature is right there, with the right there, and it does it in surround sound. Now, normally it wouldn't, it bothers some people a little bit type thing. With me, with the surround sound, lights out and everything, I was like, golly, that's just messed up. And then I look up, because then that's whenever I fully realize that the attic door, going up into the attic is right freaking above me. And I'm like, nope, we're done. And I snapped that disc in half. I said, we ain't doing this. That bad mojo was out of the house quick. And yes, because and Lost Hope Entertainment hit this one on the head with Ju-on, because if I thought that was bad enough with Grudge, Ju-on is where they actually hire paranormal entities, not actual people, as actors, and have them, work in these movies, because there's no way they did that otherwise. That scared the hell out of me. That was back in my Blockbuster days, whenever we had free movies, and Ju-on was one of them that I grabbed because I had no idea what it was. And then I quickly realized that, oh God, this is the wrong kind of roller coaster I want to be on right now.
It's so similar to like Pulse, and Pulse was another like similar Ju-on Japanese horror that really, like, there are some scenes in that of just like how they shot it. That is it. Oh, those images tough to erase and get out of the brain.
Exactly. Plus, they didn't have, they never showed the capability of having the technology to really get, graphics out there and the special effects. So I think there was one scene in Ju-on where it was in the elevator, and whenever that thing came out of the elevator and then kind of went back in and reversed, came back out, it was like, no, I want the elevator to go away, but to take that thing with it too, and it wouldn't go, and the elevator wouldn't move, and kept opening the door. Like, no, this is messed up. There's just too much going on in here for it to be, because it wasn't actually special effects, because they weren't putting that much into it in the beginning. And he said, Japanese horror is a whole new level. There are so many good ones, and there are. And there have been a lot of American remakes on these, and then we don't find out about the originals from Japan until after the fact, and go, "Ooh, we thought ours was good. Woo, we haven't even scratched the surface." So yeah, there's some good ones with that. And you're chomping at the bit. You're saying another one, aren't you?
What?
What, you're over here ready to talk again?
No, I was just gonna say that with me, I actually that on edge feeling that most people get watching horror movies, I actually enjoy that feeling. I seek it out.
Oh yeah.
I'm marrying a serial killer. God.
I mean, there's nothing like watching a horror movie in the dark and then just going right straight to bed and going to sleep.
Yep, I do too. Not a problem with it. I watch the horror movie and then I go to sleep. Gives you the best dreams.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
Most vivid dreams.
I mean, I mess with it. There are things that kind of get me jump started type things, not actual fear. The only absolute fear that I have, which is actually a phobia, trypanophobia, which is needles. No can do. I know some people are like scared of needles. I actually go into the whole blood pressure, sweat, passing out, convulsions while I'm out, that kind of thing. I've told doctors whenever I go in there to the emergency room or whatever for certain things, and it's like, hey, whenever you get me in here, you're going to use the needle. You're going to need to put me out first somehow, some way, give me gas or whatever. And they're like, oh, we'll be easy with the needle. And I'm like, no, don't even say that. Duh. And there I go, because I'm down.
Holy cow.
And they're in there going, please wake up. Please wake up. And I'm like, and as soon as I get up, and I'm like, I told you so. So yeah, I don't do that. And this one over here uses that to her advantage quite often. Whenever she wants to get my attention, if I'm not listening to her for something, she just whispers that 6-letter or 7-letter word if she puts the S on it. And yeah, I'm like, nope, don't go there. Don't do it. She likes to.
I like to needle him.
See, like I said, we're engaged. Past tense. But I mean, horror movies are a lot of fun. This time of year is a lot of fun, being able to get dressed up, and enjoy what's going on. And it's not just this time of year. We can actually watch horror movies and everything throughout. Every once in a while, they have some good ones that'll, sneak through. They have some good series. some good books. Some of the comics have been, there's some good horror comics that have been out there that have gotten my attention that I didn't expect to do so. Mainly because they didn't tell enough about them, and I gave them a chance. And as soon as I get them, I'm like, wait a minute, you didn't mention that was in here, so this is pretty cool. It's the extra information that you don't know that sometimes is something you can kind of, look into seeing what's different on there. Some of the horror comics I know that come to mind right off the bat is Joseph Oliveria, I believe is how you say his last name, has Stay Alive series. He's over in the UK. That series alone is excellent. And then I think there's like 3 or 4 other spinoff series from that. It's black and white. I mean, it's as basic as can be, but it's basically like watching Poltergeist in a comic. If there was actually not the, what you knew what was going on scenario. So it's not that they know what's happening, so they can't really destroy what's happening if you don't know what it is, and therefore you can't win. So it's an interesting setup on there, and there's no spoilers in there because you can read it and you still won't know what's going on. But that's my take on as far as comics go with something on there. Are there any books or comics that really come to mind with y'all? Let's go ahead and start with Christy on this one.
There was one that was back out when I was in high school that I read, and whenever I say the title, people automatically think it's another movie, but it's not. It was a book called Joyride, and the premise basically was, and yeah, it's a spoiler alert, is these kids was harassing a janitor in high school, and he ended up getting burned, and it was really, it was a typical 80s horror the way it was wrote, but it was really good too.
Sounds interesting. Now, this is not the same janitor that got burned and all that kind of stuff that was, ended up having knives for fingers and all that kind of stuff, is it? Because,
Oh no. Oh no. No. It's a completely different one. And of course, It is another one that I really enjoyed reading. But that's probably about the only 2 that comes to mind right now. Christine was always been one of my favorite. Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
That one was really good too. I'm a huge Stephen King fan.
Prior to him having the alien encounter, so whenever he had his car wreck, all of a sudden had the alien encounter, and everything has to do with aliens after that. I kind of found that odd, but the prior to the car wreck, all his stuff was amazing. The things that he was coming out with on there.
Exactly.
What about you, Jade? What do you got?
Oh yeah, probably a lot, a lot of them. Book-wise, non-comic, like modern stuff, I would say The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones is super good. He's a author from the Blackfoot Reservation, where I was born and raised as well. So that was pretty cool. And it's a story about, it's a Native American horror story, and it's pretty interesting. Has a lot to do with the kind of culture and the also just like the environment of Montana. It's kind of ripe for a horror story, and this one just feels, again, it takes those things that I've just known all my life and turns them on its head. There's a book called The Horror Store, which is I believe it's Grady Hendrix who did My Best Friend's Exorcism. He's got a new one out that's like the Southern Society Vampire Hunters. I don't remember what it is, but Horror Store specifically is about a haunted like IKEA, and it's pretty great. It's really funny and truly kind of freaky. And then in terms of comics, like tons. We're kind of in like a renaissance of horror comics right now. It's one of the most kind of popular genre in comics, and so there's tons of stuff. Mm-hmm. Sure, there's stuff that's maybe not as like good and as well thought out and stuff like that, but there are some writers more so than just like series, I think, that like are worth following. Like Jeff Lemire, I think if it's Jeff Lemire's got his name attached to it, it's going to be a pretty interesting read. May's book was really great. Snow Angels is super good. and his other one, Roughneck, is also really great. And I think Essex County, which is one of his other series, is getting made into a TV show like right now. But beyond that, the other ones that have stuck with me that I love so much were Something is Killing the Children. James Tinian. It's just I think the pacing is wonderful. The art is super great. Werther's art is awesome in that book. And then beyond moving outside of just Western comics, Junji Ito, have to talk about Junji Ito and manga, and Uzumaki specifically. Uzumaki, I think, is one of the first times in comic books that comics, I think, they're so different than regular horror, because comics, the format about them, there's something that you as the reader, the horror feels contained in a different way, because you can see it and stuff like that, and you can just kind of close the book and you don't have to keep going. But there's something about Junji Ito that just messes you up, that you're reading it and it doesn't feel like any other horror comic out there. It just, the images that he draws stick in your mind for forever, and there's no getting them out of there, and they're so fucked. That's the only way that you can describe them. Is just, they're just fucked, and you see them and you'll never burn them out of your brain, and they're in there forever. The human mushrooms, I don't think that will ever leave my brain. So yeah, Junji Ito, any of his stuff, but specifically Uzumaki is so worth a read, especially if you're not a big fan of horror comics. That one will make you a fan of horror comics.
Nice. Definitely. I agree on that one. That is definitely it. And you're right about it. It sticks in your head. You can't get it out of there. There's no amount of bleach you can put in there to try to get that out.
No, definitely not.
Tom, what about you? What stands out on your end? What do you like?
Nothing. I don't read shit. Everybody knows me. I don't read shit. The only book, horror book. I mean, I've read some Stephen King stuff. It doesn't really do much for me, but I do remember the one that does stick out for me, and it actually became a movie of a different title, was Cycle of the Werewolf, way back in the day. And became the movie Silver Bullet. So that was cool. I liked that a lot. But a lot of horror stuff, it doesn't. Reading horror stuff doesn't connect to me. It's I don't know what it is. There's the environment, and we've talked about with the environment, right, of horror and stuff and bringing you into the environment. Comics and reading books just doesn't do that for me. So there's things that I enjoy, but a lot of it's because of the art. So I don't know, this is a while back. Steve Niles did a Frankenstein book with Bernie Wrightson before he passed, and the art on that is just oh my god, this is absolutely mind-blowing what Bernie Wrightson does. If you don't know who Bernie Wrightson is, do yourself a favor, go Google Bernie Wrightson and his art. And it was a 5-issue series right before he passed, so thankfully they actually got to finish the series. So a lot of the horror stuff I like because of the art, but I don't really have a lot of horror stuff. A lot of the horror stuff I have is sort of campy stuff, like old 70s horror stuff. As far as comics, because I collect a lot of the old horror comics. But a lot of that is for the design of it all. It's the packaging more so than just what's actually inside the story. I like the way the cover tells the story with all the trade dress and logos and stuff. So my literary horror side is very small because it's just never connected to me.
And you mentioned about with the old school comics having the covers on there that tell the story directly on there. It looks like some of those look like it could be an old movie ticket. Some of it looks like an old movie poster, and that's what's really cool to collect and look like that from that series.
Oh, I thought I had some right here, but here we go.
Usually have stuff within arm's reach pretty quick.
Always. And speaking of Bernie Wrightson, I don't know if you'll see this because of the green screen, but But
I'm
yeah,
gonna give you full screen.
Chamber of Darkness,
Nice.
Where Monsters Dwell, all of this kind of stuff.
I think he also did one called did he do one like, I think it's the Creep or the Creeper or something like that. It was one of his first ones.
There is a creeper. He's like a horror superhero kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Frankenstein's amazing. It's the artwork and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, it's insane.
And the same with Cycle of the Werewolf.
Absolutely.
Oh,
insane.
yeah.
Cycle of the Werewolf is cool too. Yeah, it's very good. Very good. I've been waiting on Scream Factory to send me my damn Silver Bullet movie for like a month and a half. It's supposed to finally be here this week with all my other stuff I bought. But yeah, it's weird because I'm a huge comic guy. I've always been a comic guy. But as far as like horror stuff, it's always been, the movies or, what I saw on TV or whatever. I remember when I was a kid, I remember stuff coming on TV for Halloween time on Halloween only. Like you would get Halloween on Halloween week, The Howling, things like that would come on TV because it's Halloween week. So we're going to do all these monster movies and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And then eventually, you had a VCR, so you record them and then you can watch them anytime you want. And of course I'm of the age where I was very much a part of the VHS boom and renting videos and straight to video type of horror and things. And so I was watching Friday the 13th and all that kind of crap, when I was like 9-10 years old. And it was good stuff. It was great. I mean, back in the day, that was stuff that, we haven't seen that kind of stuff before. So that was fun.
Exactly. Now I want to go ahead. We're going to go ahead and I'm fixing to give my my number one pick on the 31 Days of Halloween. But I want to go ahead and quickly go through the rest of the list on here real quick, so all of the other movies that are on here. And of course, I'm not going to go into detail on any of these. If you want to go watch them, go look on my channel, and you'll be able to see the 31 days ranked countdown. You can go through and watch them and see what you think and give your opinions on there too. So we'll start from 31. Final Destination, 47 Meters Down, The Mist, Lord of Illusions, American Werewolf in London, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Saw, 31, Alien, Wreck, Event Horizon, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Shining, Halloween, The Birds, Poltergeist, The Thing, Hellraiser, Devil, Lost Boys, Christine, Jaws, The Collector, 13 Ghosts, 7, Cabin in the Woods, Crawl, The Burrowers, The Descent, and yesterday's was Babadook. And the number one on my list is going to be Trick or Treat.
Nice. Nice.
Trick or Treat is number one on my list because not only is it an anthology of several different stories on there that make up this movie, but it ties in everything that you see from the very first, pictures that are coming up on there and the first, images and everything have something and everything to do with how this thing ends at the end. And no matter how many times you watch this, you don't see exactly how that twist comes in. It's like you can't break it down enough. It flows so well. So it made it as my number one on there just because I absolutely love the way this thing was done. And it's funny because Tom and I were in a conversation on a post a couple of days ago about if they were going to come out with with a sequel to this. And they're in discussions about it, but nothing is secured as of yet. I'm sure hoping they change that to where finally we'll start getting something in lines of this because it needs one if it's done correctly.
Active development is the term they used. But
yes.
That still means we're a number of years away.
But it is definitely, that one makes my my number one on there. And I knew there was going to be some people saying some things. I know. No Evil Dead. I had to base this thing down to 31 movies, and I didn't want to do traditional for the most part on these. And if you notice from my list, there's not a lot of traditional on there. I kind of went off grid on some of them. But there are some that are on there, especially when they make it as low or high, however you're looking on the list, whenever they're closer to 31 or something, is because of some of the fact that they made other movies in the franchise. It's like if they made number 1 and it was great, and then they made number 2 through 10 and it wasn't as good, and yeah, it would be higher on the list instead of lower, closer to number 1. So that's why I did it that way. But one case in point that I want to bring up is because Hellraiser is on the list. I mentioned to Lady Trish about Hellraiser and asked her if she had watched it, and she said, "I've only seen the first 2. I haven't seen the other. I think you said like 1 or 2 more." And I said, "Now, as of now, with the new one out there are 9 movies total in the Hellraiser franchise." And she was like,
"Movies."
And she looked at me and she goes, "Why?"
I use that term "movie" loosely. The fourth one, though, to me is the most fun because it's the origin of the box, and then it goes completely batshit sideways with its finale, which I was like not prepared for. So I like the fourth one a lot. That's my favorite of all of them.
And that's the way a lot of people are with that, and it actually rounds it out to finish off. If you went 1 through 4, you're good.
Yeah.
They went into the backstory so much in the other ones and went into the hell realm on a couple of the other movies, and then we also lost the main actor that was playing Pinhead in the last 2 movies. They went with 2 different actors on there, and it really threw it off because even the aesthetics of the makeup and everything were just not there. It just didn't look the same. So it was different, but that's
and just putting a different actor in that role. I mean, it's a simple role. You think it's a simple role. The guy just kind of stands there and says, some cool lines, but it's like it's Freddy Krueger, right? You can't separate Freddy from Robert Englund. It's impossible. So when they did that reboot, that remake, whatever the hell it was called, and they got the guy that played Watchmen dude.
Yeah.
Haley Joel, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. The movie was not great anyway. I mean, it was just not a great movie, but even him, it's not even that he was able to do a performance to elevate it. It just was just whatever. So, Friday the 13th or Friday, oh, Jesus Christ, Nightmare on Elm Street, unfortunately, right, is dead when Freddy is dead. I mean, when he's gone, that's it. I mean, there's no chance of bringing that franchise back. Unlike things like Halloween and Jason, because it's dudes behind a mask, and you can kind of do whatever you want whenever you want to do it. Obviously, you had Kane Hodder as Jason for a period of time, but even then, there's no voice, there's no real acting going on other than I'm a tough guy. But Freddy is like Pinhead in that they're so ingrained in our consciousness and our awareness of how they talk and how they present themselves that I think that was one of the big things with the Hellraiser remake that they just did. Like the chick, like I had no problem with them like doing the chick,
right?
Like okay, that's fine, but she had nothing to do. I mean, even when she did have her lines, it was just this. It was almost like she was just, we have such sights to show you. Okay, great. What are they? Can you show me the sights? Because what's happening right now is not working. So let's go ahead and see the sights. So yeah, it was a very weird remake thing that they did on Hulu.
And it definitely was, and it was more, in my opinion, it was more steampunk in the look of it than the original on there. So it was odd on that. Why are you laughing? What? Oh, yes. I didn't even see that. Okay, saw the comment on here. So Lost Hope Entertainment, which is Tim Ingram, is saying I'm questioning our friendship. Yeah, I know, because he's still going on about Evil Dead, and now he didn't even mention Shaun of the Dead. That's not on my list either. No. And Shaun of the Dead, I consider that comedy more than actual horror, but that's kind of the way that I look at it anyway. But yeah, with Hellraiser, it took a different direction on there, but there wasn't the epic standing of the character. Like, we're all looking forward to seeing what a new Pinhead would do, especially with today's technology and being able to really kick it up a notch with the graphics and all. and we didn't get to see it. And I think we were kind of like, oh, it had potential. It was there. We had such sights, to be shown, and we didn't.
Yeah, and I like the box. I like how the box had different configurations. I thought that was cool, But as soon as I saw the credits, and oh my god, I don't even want to say his name. I can't even think of his name is. That guy that I don't like. I was like, oh, now I know why I don't like this movie, because it's this dude, and he's David Goyer. David Goyer.
Yes.
And he's attached to all the Batman stuff and things that I don't like, and so on. So I was like, oh my god, this guy. And in fact, David Goyer had his name on one of those Cabinet of Curiosity episodes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I did not notice that.
Yeah.
I have to wait and see whenever we get to that episode and see if that's one I actually like or not.
Just as long as the guy who screwed up Thor is not making one.
Troy, no. This is Halloween episode. We're not talking the comic stuff right now. No. That's a whole nother show and a half right there. No.
That one can really screw up a show.
Yeah, we've never been so close to walking out of a movie than that one right there. We just don't do it. I mean, we figure we pay the money, we're not going to, miss out on paying for a movie.
I was really borderline about to walk out of Halloween, this last one, because I was like, literally, I was like, what is the point of what is going on? And then I realized, I sat through Eternals. I can sit through this. That's fine.
Like I said, that's a whole nother show right there with talking about all that. But Halloween is definitely a fun time. It's a lot of fun to go through the stuff that scares you and the stuff that you enjoy. And to learn about some new things that maybe you haven't thought about before. I mean, we've talked about quite a bit here tonight with movies, TV shows, books, comics, the whole rundown there. You now know what scares all of us. So please don't be sending, messages and emails and things like that trying to scare us through those. We wouldn't appreciate that. But it's all in fun. But I just want to go ahead and say we're kind of getting to that point. I'm going to start wrapping things up, but I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. And especially being able to spend the time to go ahead and have some fun up here on this particular day. But it's Halloween, but also because, we're doing this in memory of David, because this was his day. He absolutely loved Halloween. I actually had him on a special a couple of years ago, and it was a Halloween special, and it was just me and him. And we had a blast up here talking about his work and Halloween and different things on there. I think we pretty much laughed to the point of tears. It's a couple of times on. It was so much fun. And
he was just a big kid at heart. That's
exactly.
all he was.
I mean,
a big kid.
But it wasn't just that. It was the fact that he was such a good guy that he did everything, for the right reasons. He didn't try to step on anybody. He didn't try to roll over anybody to get to the top of anything. In fact, he didn't want to be at the top, because then he got more attention than the guys below him who he thought actually deserved more attention. But it was an absolute honor to have known him. Never got to meet him physically, because of all of the fun stuff throughout 2020 and all that fun stuff. But I feel like I already have. It just has that feeling to it, and miss him terribly. And this is the show that I wanted to do just to make sure that we honored him through having some fun and being able to smile. And we downed quite a few movies and things like that. I still don't understand why we all hate Supernatural except for me. I still don't understand
that. These are weird.
Oh boy. But it's been a lot of fun. I did it. Well, I definitely appreciate
it.
It's something that I've been looking forward to for quite some time, and Halloween was the perfect time. And of course, it fell on my regular day of having a show anyway, so it was a no-brainer to go ahead and have a panel. And I appreciate each of you for being here. Go ahead and let us know. We're going to go ahead and start with Jade on this one. I'm going to give you full screen on here. Go ahead and let us know who you are, what you do, and where to find you, and then we will move around from there.
Sure. Again, my name is Jade Louder, a comic book artist. I make this series, got it right here. It's a horror show, which is a kind of a comic anthology series of kind of campy, fun, comedy-esque horror that now I'm learning that film might not consider horror, might consider comedy. But you can find me on, my handle is just @JadeLouder on Instagram and the Facebooks. And yeah, that's the easiest way to kind of like at Jade Lauder on Instagram is the easiest way to kind of find out what I'm doing and what's happening and what I'm working on next.
Excellent. And just to kind of throw just a quick thing on there, actually, Jade will be a guest of mine in the near future. So be watching out for the announcements on that as we go ahead and announce who all's going to be on the show for next month. So I will definitely be announcing that and looking forward to it too, Jade.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. And we're going to move on to Tom. We'll give you full screen. Let us know who you are, what you do, and where to find you.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. You guys can just find that on Facebook or BDI Comics on Instagram and Twitter. Lots of comics still coming out. We just shipped a whole bunch of Kickstarters out. We're about to launch Princesses versus Zombies. November 18th is National Princess Day, so we're launching a roughly a 12-day campaign on the 18th. We are going to have something very special on the final day, November 30th. It's a special day. We're going to have a special finale piece to the campaign, so be prepared for all of that. And then Ursa Minor, Penny for Your Soul, all kinds of stuff next year as we go into 2013 for Big Dog Inc. 2023, 13-year anniversary. I always call it 2013. 2013. 13-year anniversary.
23 anniversary, something around there. Yeah. He's been doing this for a while and not stopping anytime soon. We'll put it, just handle it that way. That's the best way to put it. There is no brakes on that train. So now we're going to go over here to Christy. Christy, I'm going to give you full screen on this one. Let us know who you are, what you do, what you're working on, and go ahead and let us know, why you're doing this as well.
Okay. Basically, I'm David Faught's sister, Christy. I'm his pain in the ass, the one in his side, manager, you name it. Basically, right now, I'm keeping his artwork going. You can find me on Facebook under my name, under his David Faught Studios Facebook page, and also his personal page. I'm trying to keep them going. And I've got a con coming up next month that I hope to see you guys there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, again, thank y'all all very much for being here. We certainly appreciate it. Hope y'all have had a great time and having some fun this Halloween. Look forward to, next year doing it up again and just having fun with this as well. But in the meantime, don't miss out on any of the content we've got on the channel with a lot of people that I'm interviewing. Lady Trish is putting me to work on this one, something fierce. I'm not only back, but she's also putting me to work, and my schedule is getting filled very quickly. In fact, as I understand it, November is completely filled now.
We actually have
2 spots?
four
4 spots.
4 spots.
4 spots left for pre-recorded. And then we have December that we're trying to book in as well. So it's going very quickly for getting everything in there.
Well, technically the last week of November skips into December. So 2 of the 4 spots are the first appointments for December.
Oh, there you go. Yep.
So
yeah, she's keeping me very busy. So keep track of what's going on. A lot of the times we're getting a lot of people who are more on Twitter or different platforms or have not had that much, maybe a first time creation or something like that that's out there. Very interesting people that we're going to be having on. Jade is one of those as well, talking about some of the products, he's working on. But remember, it's not always just about the products. We're actually going to be finding out who the people are to make sure that they're not just AI, trying to take over the world in human form. We just got to make sure. There's that whole, Skynet thing that's over there with the Facebook logo. We already know how that's working. But again, we've had a lot of fun. Thank you for being here. Certainly appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you next time. So until next time, go ahead and keep it indie, y'all, and keep it scary, y'all. Catch you next time.